All right, good morning, good morning. If you haven't already and you just joined, would love for you to share where you are tuning in from in the chat. It's always great to see where people are coming from, and we'll get started. All right, it is 8:30, so we will go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Carly. I am the Community Events and Partnerships Lead here at Learnit, and welcome to our event on designing a holistic L&D and wellness program for employees. We're thrilled to have you here today. We're so happy you found us. If you are new to our Friday events, welcome. If you are a veteran and have been coming back and a regular community member, welcome back. We're thrilled to have you as well. A little bit of context around these sessions and Learnit and our partner FitPros, who we're so excited to be partnering with on this event today, which we'll speak on more in just a moment. But just for the purpose of a little bit of context around our events, these are part of a weekly community event series that we do here at Learnit that are hosted every Friday from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. And every month we focus on a different theme. This month being employee well-being, and we're focusing on skills and tools really to help us transition into the next normal workplace. So whether you're staying remote, maybe you're moving back into the office, or some hybrid, we're here to support you, and we're bringing in amazing guest speakers like FitPros and our own experts like Courtney to speak on those topics. So we're thrilled to be partnering with another local Bay Area learning and development and wellness firm, FitPros, for this event. Before I introduce our speakers, a couple of housekeeping items. This event will be recorded and provided to our community members in offsite, which I will speak on a little bit after the session today, but don't worry, it will be recorded and you will have some fun takeaways and gifts for attending this session. And you can also ask your questions in the chat. So this session is meant to be interactive. We have some fun questions for you that we're going to be asking. So please do feel free to use the chat to contribute, to engage, to ask your questions. And Marissa, our community coordinator, and myself will be here to capture those. So with that, and without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to our two speakers, Caitlin and Courtney. Caitlin is the Wellbeing Manager at FitPros, and she partners directly with human resource and benefits managers, as well as entire teams, really to create holistic wellness programs. And I've been lucky enough to be a yoga instructor and actually on the facilitation side for FitPros for the last 2 years, and can just say from personal experience, it's been an amazing experience to work with Caitlin and the team at FitPros. And Caitlin herself is just a lovely human to work with, and with her prior experience in social work and advocacy, she really brings a global perspective to the work she does with clients, as well as being a former Division II athlete. And she's from the East Coast, so she brings that fun East Coast energy. Anyway, other than that, we also have Courtney Ritchie, who's joining us today. Courtney is one of Learnit's senior learning strategists, and I've also had the pleasure of working with Courtney over my last 2 years at Learnit, and she has 10 plus years of experience working directly with leaders, with different teams, both on the human resources side and also on the more technical and IT side, to build programs for end users, for IT professionals, and also for employees. So she collaborates with really the entire spectrum of teams within organizations to build really customized programs. And so with that, I want to pass it over to Caitlin and Courtney. Thank you so much to both of you for being here.
Thank you, Carly. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Hopefully y'all can see it. The theme today, as she mentioned, thanks for the introduction, by the way, is designing a holistic L&D and wellness program. There was some conversations about how those two intersect. And as I've been working with Caitlin over the last couple of weeks, it's been pretty mind-blowing how much that they actually do. So just a little bit about myself. I've been at Learnit for going on 13 years, and I have been very much engaged in the community in terms of where the world is going and how the workforce is being impacted by the elements around us, and specifically how that's impacting learning and development. So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm excited to be partnering with Caitlin. Caitlin, if you wanted to say hi and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Courtney. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Caitlin Ackerman, as you know, Wellbeing Manager at FitPros, and I have been with the FitPros team for a little over a year and a half now. And I have had the pleasure of working with a variety of different team members at different types of companies across different industries to talk about workplace wellness strategy. And getting from a holistic perspective, bringing in different types of people on different teams and getting buy-in. And it's been such a pleasure. And I'm really excited to talk today about how to help you design yours.
Awesome. So we'd love to start off with a little bit of contribution from you guys. So understanding why you're here and maybe what you're hoping to get out of this conversation, out of this event. If you want to go to the chat bar, you're more than welcome to share your name. And again, anything you're excited about being here for, anything you're looking to learn. Hopefully we can make sure we hit on any points you guys bring up. So if you feel like contributing, that'd be great. Carly, if you want to call anything out that looks like something Caitlin and I desperately need to know. I don't have the chat open at the moment, but I know she's got it for us.
Awesome. Yeah, we're really excited to hear this. And the reason that we're kind of kicking off with this check-in question is to kind of model throughout this webinar ways that you can check in with your employees and at your companies, kind of showing different approaches to getting employees to share on what some of their needs are. Some of those look like check-in questions, icebreakers like this, show and tells, at your local company about different things that they've learned, creating wellness channels, and just opportunity for connection. So, Carly, do you want to share with us some things that you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. Andrea shared that she's in charge of fitness programs, and so she's looking for some new ideas. And then Natalie had a really interesting point too, that she leads learning and development and well-being. And she said they're fairly separate right now. So she's really interested about the idea of kind of bringing them together as one. So, and then, yeah, we have Nagar, who also contributed that, just interested in the idea of a more modern, innovative wellness program versus just traditional extended health benefits. So yeah, really, really interested to dive into those.
Great.
Yeah, those sound great. I'm excited to hear about those too. That actually fits in very well. So thank you everyone for contributing that. Basically, what we're going to first start out with is trends. The first point we're going to talk about are things that Caitlin and I are seeing, and they're going to touch on a couple of those points. But because her and I both have so much visibility into this space, I think someone mentioned they're in charge of both L&D and wellness. We're seeing what our clients are talking about in terms of challenges they have right now and challenges they have coming on the pipe, and how we're able to support them. So we're going to start by talking about, again, those trends that we're seeing. And that first one that we want to call out is really about creating a culture. And the conversations I'm having, I know Caitlin will talk about this too, is it's not just about checking boxes and providing opportunities for your employees to be able to do something. It's really about creating a true, inherent, holistic culture. And the way that you do that is by doing a lot of different things. It can't just be one checkbox. It has to have involvement from management. There has to be recurring learning opportunities and engagement opportunities, events, and there have to be activities that people can contribute and participate in, like book clubs or workshops. So there really has to be a multifaceted approach to create a true culture of any identified initiative, whether it's growth, whether it's wellness, whether it's mindset, whatever that is. It can't just be one thing that solves for that issue. Caitlin, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think to start off with how, when thinking about how do you actually create this culture, asking yourselves a few questions, or in your team meetings with leadership, asking, what are the problems and the challenges that we're currently looking to try to solve? What do we want the outcome to be? What are the ultimate goals? And then thinking about why. And then that will kind of, be able to help you build a foundation. And then to the next point that we're going to kind of talk about, building attunement for managers and employees, how attuned is leadership to what people are asking for, what people are needing, thinking about how can employees communicate their needs? Are you seeing things in people's benefits claims? Are you having employee pulse surveys? Do you have a wellness channel or an engagement channel where people can kind of post things that they're passionate about, or post pain points that maybe that they're having? We're seeing that mental health is a huge focus in 2021. I think, we know that it's been year after year even more prevalent in the workplace. But mental health too affects our physical wellness. It affects our professionalism. It affects our social interactions at work. And so being attuned to what employees and managers and what managers need to then support employees is definitely going to be important and a key to creating that culture and building a sustainable plan.
I think it's a really good point that you're bringing up. And one of the themes that you'll see throughout the points that are identified in this series is that mid-level manager. I feel like a lot of studies and a lot of the conversations I have all are pointing to that they're really the backbone of the company, and you need to enable them to not only promote that culture, to be able to have the conversations with their directs, but you need to give them growth patterns and opportunities to climb their ladders and to be able to develop themselves. So that attunement for managers and employees, that ability to communicate, that ability to develop stronger teams and build out their high posts or high potential employees is a huge trend, because without that core strength, companies tend to struggle. So I think that mid-level management is a huge component for both health and learning and development growth. So they're a huge target audience, at least from what we're seeing right now. The last trend that we're seeing is, or that we're calling out anyways, is this concept of inclusion and belonging. I mean, you cannot be in this space without discussing DE&I and how it's going to start impacting your company. From every conversation I have, everything we're doing now is in that lens of equity, in that lens of inclusion. So when it comes to initiative, when it comes to traditional learning and development programs, and I assume Caitlin will point out wellness, how are we making sure it's equitable? How are we making sure that we're being inclusive of all the communities of our org? So I think that one of the things that we're recommending and seeing is that you always have an identified North Star of what inclusion looks like at your organization. Caitlin, what about you? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, to your point of ensuring and building out equitable programs, the key is really to identify what employees need, what they want, and what they'll participate in. And that all those things and driving programs like that will support healthy habit building and long-term overall health. At FitPros, we kind of go into every meeting with a client and intake information about people's their demographic. What is the demographic breakdown? How can we ensure that from a representation standpoint, the wellness experts that we bring in match the needs of the company, as well as things that they're seeing just a kind of across the board. The other kind of part of that is, we created a 2021 calendar that has global observances, holidays, themes for different groups of people. Thinking about your Black employees, your Asian American employees, your Latino community, your LGBT community, and having representation of the people that you're bringing in to lead different initiatives to represent them and to have people be able to speak on that type of perspective. And then also, when looking to kind of drive successful programs, having this group of, we like to call them wellness warriors, getting people at the company engaged and talking about the different programs that you're having to kind of disperse all of your different efforts and kind of promote utilization of your programs that you're having. So I think we have a poll coming up because we'd love to hear from all of you about how, do you feel prepared for the new normal? Courtney, maybe you can kind of talk a little bit about the poll and what you're seeing.
Yeah, and this is anonymous. So if you're in charge of preparing for the next normal, don't worry, it's not reflected on you. But we're curious because we're doing, certainly at Learnit, we're doing a lot of focus groups and conversations with our clients about what that next normal looks like and what we think the biggest hurdles to clear are going to be. So understanding those that feel confident and prepared and those that don't, and what that gap is, why they do or don't feel prepared to handle this. So please go ahead and fill that out. I'm excited to see some of the results there that Carly, I'm sure, can share with us. But I just have to go back. I love the Wellness Warriors, Caitlin, because we have something similar for Learnit. We have learning champions. We identify those people within the org, and we encourage our leaders to find those people to lead minor initiatives in their department and their teams, and be the people that represent that bigger initiative picture and bigger understanding. So if you have warriors or champions, however you want to classify them, those are the people that you lean into, and those are the ones that you give opportunities to, because they're going to be thought leaders in their area of your org to get people motivated to move down that path. Carly, do we have any results?
We do. Here we go. I'm going to share the results now. So it looks like we have about 70% somewhat prepared, and then some people feeling prepared, and small 12% feeling not ready at all. A little bit of a mix.
If you're on that prepared, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear what your strategies are. I love that. I love that. Thank you, Carly, for sharing. So moving on into the next section, we are going to talk about some of those strategies. So strategies that Caitlin and I had kind of brainstormed that we're seeing as being put in place and or being in current design. The first one is, I think, a huge one. And I know that Caitlin will agree here, but it's building intentional engagement and safe spaces. Now that we're not all in the office together, and whether we may or may not be in the future is irrelevant, we had a byproduct, which was that engagement, which allowed people to feel special. Whether you were at one of those large companies that had great micro kitchens and breweries in the afternoon, or you were at an office space where people just went and grabbed lunch together, a lot of that's gone. And so the intention to create engagement is such a key component. And I am encouraging all of my clients to do that, because the most important thing is retaining talent. The reality is the recruiters are out there, and right now the hunting is good because people are feeling disengaged from their company for the first time because they've lost some of that. So in order to keep them engaged, you have to create these spaces. And I know Caitlin's got some great ideas how she does that from the FitPros angle. And the way the Learnit is approaching it is not just instructor-led classroom, but opportunities for peer-to-peer connection, allowing people to have cohorts that they go through where they're bonding with other people from their org they might never have met, through again, traditional classroom environments where people can get in there and meet other folks from their org that they would never have engaged with otherwise. And then of course, there's the concept of a safe space. And the third party is probably the best bet, whether that's Learnit or FitPros, allowing that psychological safe space to get outside of what might feel like a dangerous place to share concerns or challenges you're having. That third party element, it allows the psychological safe space to inherently happen, even if the byproduct is just another training class around something like time management. Maybe you can have an opportunity to voice your concerns that you're being pressured to do a lot more than you used to because you're not commuting. In that safe space, you can talk through ways to navigate that with your work environment. Caitlin, what about you?
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations at FitPros, as our team, for ways that even within our own organization that we can create safe opportunities to express ourselves, our frustrations, our goals. And we have, a weekly and or a bi-weekly 15-minute one-on-one or coffee break with key members on our team, people who we collaborate with a lot. And really the goal of that is to be proactive in how we interact with each other, and different kind of other things that we do. And what I always kind of recommend to clients is looking at small group initiatives, looking at large group initiatives, having, opportunity for managers to share how they're feeling as well. Because we're seeing, one trend that we saw last year was that HR teams were really we want to plan for our employees, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this. And the HR managers were then burnt out. And if you're burnt out, you can't be your best self to continue to support your employees. And to Courtney's point about having, a third party like Learnit or FitPros, we at FitPros have a couple of really great group initiatives like well-being discussions with a mental health professional that talks about and introduces mental health challenges, and then opens up the floor in a safe space to be able to collaborate and share maybe what you're feeling. Similarly, we host vision board workshops as well, where people can identify their goals and bring their teams together, because then you're building kind of collaboration. And I want to help Courtney. Oh, that's Courtney's goal, is to maybe travel post-pandemic, or Courtney's looking to kind of adapt maybe a healthier habit. Now I can hold her accountable. She can hold me accountable. But without the opportunity to have done that, we would feel disconnected potentially from each other. And so really being proactive to how we address employees' needs and doing that through intentional actions.
Absolutely. I think that that's a really nice segue into the second point that Caitlin had brought up in when we were meeting about designing with the agile employee in mind. And I actually just saw a question in the chat about specifically what that next need might be. And to borrow Caitlin's vernacular here, if the pandemic taught us anything, it's to expect the unexpected, right? There's no way to plan for sure what our network of workforce will look like in December. I promise you that no one will predict it exactly unless they just got lucky. So the reality is you have to have agile situations for learning and wellness in place so that it can be stress tested. Maybe everyone does end up back in the workforce. Maybe we do have a new version where we've got flex employees, remote employees, full-time in-person employees, and you have to be able to design programs that are agile within those spaces. So whether that's building, access across just internet, everything's accessible via the internet, or figuring out where you have clusters of employees and creating in-person events within those, creating space for travel for people to opportunely meet with each other at different times of the year. You have to think about where they might be and where they might be in their engagement level and meet them there. And that's a crucial point when you're designing these programs, is think agilely. And that's something that Learnit, and I know FitPros, and I want to hear Caitlin share what they're doing. We're doing that knowing that we have no idea where your employees are. And we want to make sure that everything we design is accessible for them in the exact same consistent way. Caitlin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, along those lines, expect the unexpected, which is what you said. And then two other words, right? Being able to pivot, and then also building and developing resiliency within your leadership team, and then also within your employees. So if you're planning, you're on-site, you're virtual, you're hybrid of both, being able to pivot where that is. And with FitPros, so actually prior to the pandemic, we were a primarily on-site company. So we would deliver our wellness programs on site where employees at the time, right, were spending the most amount of time. Now people are working at home and have the opportunity to connect with people all over the world. If you're a global team or you're dispersed around, the country, your employees on the East Coast and the West Coast can come together to be able to collaborate, something that probably wasn't happening, when you were just on site. So this hybrid model of being able to connect teams however and wherever they are is really nice. And that kind of goes into the next point of building consistent opportunities across your organization. And so we know that, you can't just have one program. One program isn't going to address the overall goal that you've set for yourself. One yoga class, one mental health talk, one Excel class is not going to have you reach the ultimate goal that you set for yourself. And so what we kind of like to think about is this mind shift that we see from disease management to lifestyle management. And I just like to bring that into this in terms of we could cure problems and then we're always kind of operating from one step behind, or we can build out this consistent and sustainable program with different paths to be able to participate. And then we're preventing problems, we're managing and building new habits that are long lasting. So Courtney, I'm curious to know from you, what are some of your clients doing to build consistent opportunities, specifically through the Learnit platform?
This goes back to something I brought up in the very beginning. Consistency you're going to see is focusing on that mid-level management. But someone I think also asked, do you separate? This was, I think, a question for wellness, but do you separate the wellness programs based on kind of hierarchy, or where people are in their org, or where people are in their employee life cycle? And the answer is yes and no, because consistent opportunities from a learning and development is important for overall cohesiveness, but also for willingness to participate. If I'm an individual contributor at a 1,000-person company and I am being asked or encouraged to go take these opportunities, employee engagement classes, yoga classes, meditation, workshops around Excel or time management, and I'm encouraged to go do this to develop myself, but I know that my management level isn't, it's really hard to get behind it. It's really hard to think that this is a truly cohesive program and that we're all in this together and we're all moving towards that North Star as a team. So consistent opportunities means everyone is encouraged at the same level, and management, it's really crucial that they're participating, because if they're not, it doesn't set a good example. So there are opportunities, get them all in the same room, get them cohesive, get them collaborating. I imagine, and Caitlin, I'll let you speak to this, but a yoga class is a great example. Get everyone in there. If you're having a workshop on dealing with difficult people, maybe separate the managers from the individual contributors, because maybe some things come up and they want to be able to comfortably talk about a challenge they're having with management. But there are times when it's really important to get them in the same room, get them collaborating, and there are times where it is important to keep them in separate rooms to have that psychological safe space. So if you wanted to add anything else to that, Caitlin, before we go into the next activity.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, and this is a question that Angela actually just put in the chat too, of like minimizing Zoom fatigue. And then to your point, Courtney, of like, and the question was, do we separate them? Do we keep them together? Is creating these consistent opportunities where there are already established things people are coming to. Do you have a monthly or quarterly all hands meeting? Do you have a sales conference? Do you have smaller team meetings? And what can you do as leaders in those meetings? I have a group that has a monthly all hands meeting, and the first 30 minutes of that is always a 30-minute health talk, a 15-minute stretch break, a ergonomic check, something like that brought from one of our FitPros facilitators. When you're looking at a smaller group, right, maybe every week I hop on with my well-being team and counterparts, and we do a check-in question, or we do a team show and tell. So maybe you just went to this really awesome time management training with Learnit, and now I want to bring what I just learned to the team, and I want to share those things. So finding little pockets that already exist within your company to build in these consistent opportunities for engagement.
Yeah, I really like that concept of finding the existing spaces to do it, and because it creates less work and you're asking less of your employees to give, because we're asking so much of them these days. I have yet to have a conversation with a human resources or learning and development person in the last 6 months. We're like, yeah, job's pretty normal. Every one of them is overwhelmed. So with that, talking about stress, which is a nice transition, one of the things that I promised, or was promised in I think the event, was that we would do a quick little exercise. And this is taken from a workshop that Learnit delivers on mindfulness and stress reduction. And this is an existing 2-hour class, specifically in the workplace, although you can use it in your personal life with most of these tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate something that's leveraged in the class. It's a quick exercise. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You can contribute in the chat bar, or you can just enjoy. But I'll keep it brief, and we'll go into just enough detail to give you some context. So what was done is, A workshop was done in University of Wisconsin with neuroscientist. I think his name is Richard Davidson. And there was a meditation instructor they pulled in, and they did a series to see if they could find a way to have mindfulness practice actually reduce stress and improve health. So what they focused on was this concept of visualizing a positive outcome as the mindfulness practice. It was an 8-week series they did with a few folks. And what they found after performing this was that it actually reduced bad stress. There was a higher tipping point into distress, meaning it was a little bit more difficult for people to go from being stressed out to actually in physical distress. And there was better overall health. Great. What does this all mean? So the concept is around, again, visualization. And what that means is if you visualize a stressful situation, you identify what that is. And then, okay, you think about that situation. Maybe this situation is presenting to a large group of people. You've got a 100-person presentation coming up next week. So you think, okay, what's stressing me out? What are the stressors? I'm stressed because I think I'm going to fumble. I'm going to mess up my words. I'm going to have a bunch of people snickering at me, or they're going to roll their eyes, or they're going to know that I'm an imposter. I've got serious imposter syndrome. And then what you do is identify which of those are based on assumptions. So that's assuming I'm going to fumble. That's assuming I'm not going to be able to bring any value to the people that are in that presentation. That's assuming that I'm not going to do a good job. So this is where this key comes in, where you can imagine a better outcome. So if I visualize that presentation goes great and people say, hey, great job, Courtney, we really enjoyed that. I got a lot out of that. What happens is I start to think about how that actually could take place and techniques or tools or tips that'll get me to there. Okay, maybe I practice more. Maybe I go over my slide deck and have someone clean it up with me. Maybe I have a colleague just do a quick demo with me and so they can give me some feedback. If I visualize that positive outcome, it dramatically increases the likelihood that it'll occur. So there's this worksheet that is given in the class, and we'll have it up for you. It's just a single PDF. I use this all the time, actually. You can get it an offsite once you're done, where you just identify the stressor. So this is a really good example that's in this workshop by the facilitators. A deadline got moved up. So the deadline is now 2 weeks sooner. So the client needs the project early. That's real. The deadline actually did change. I did just lose a couple of weeks of productive time to get this project done. The perceived stress is that it'll be done poorly, or I'll miss it and the client will be mad, or I'm going to be working all week. And that's the perceived stress. That's not real. So if I use this visualization technique, I come up with this concept of, okay, client gets it on time. I don't have to work this weekend. It's still a good job. I start thinking about, okay, how can I actually make that happen? I could probably clear out this extra couple of hours on Thursday to get it done because I don't have to go to that other meeting. It's optional. Or this project is not actually as time sensitive. I'll push it out. So you start thinking through ways that you can actually achieve that better outcome. And again, this study found it's that much more likely to happen. So I'd love it if you guys give this a shot. If you wanted to try it, this is a worksheet, again, you'll be able to have access to. If anyone wants to contribute anything, we actually have a pulse check here. That is something that Caitlin's going to talk about.
Yeah, awesome. I love that activity, Courtney, so much. And when you were first sharing it with me on some of our preliminary calls, it really does help taking a moment to pause and be like, okay, what really is going on here and what am I feeling? And then being solutions focused in kind of changing your own outcome. And I really like that. Something that I love to do with different groups is to be able to do a pulse check. So you're in a meeting like this, right? We just ran through an exercise. How's everybody feeling? And so Carly just put inside of the link or inside of the chat a link for you to identify, how do you feel after that exercise? What did you take away from that exercise? Put a word or two. You can also text what's on the screen there. And what it's going to do is generate a word bubble. This is a great activity to do in the middle of a live session, at a team meeting, to kick off different calls, to get a sense from the group what is going on, how people are feeling. And then you can make kind of strategic decisions or programming decisions based on that. So in the beginning, we did, right, a live check. We did a check-in. In the chat, I could see Angela said this, John said this is how this person, what Courtney's here for, this is what Carly's here for. But this perk of a word bubble is maybe you have a little bit of a more anonymous question that you want to ask. Maybe you're asking a feelings question and you want people to be able to open and answer freely. And so this word bubble is going to generate what people are seeing. And so Courtney, maybe you want to pull up the word bubble. We'll start to see what people are putting in there. And what's really nice is that you'll start to see common words will become bigger inside of the word bubble. So you'll see here, excited is a little bit bigger. That means that more people are saying that they feel excited to bring this into their own workforce. Conversation, also another, bigger one. When we think about implementing these into our different team meetings, the bigger words you can tell are said more often. And then, so let's say if people feel excited, they feel excited for mindfulness. Great, let's implement some more mindfulness-based programs. Let's get an expert in here to be able to leave this. So this is a really great way to get a pulse check on what people are feeling, what people are wanting, and then also to be able to drive solutions around it. So let's kind of see some of these words here. People are really excited about it. They're feeling hopeful for the new normal and for incorporating mindfulness and stress reduction and visualization. This is awesome. Thank you everyone for participating. And we can take a snapshot of this and also include it in a follow-up so you can see an image of kind of how everybody is feeling after this. This is great. Thank you.
Yeah. And I love these type of word bubbles for quarterly meetings, for your maybe monthly meetings, team meetings, where you identify, what's one word to describe your goal. And these are things that you can, again, pull up throughout the year. I love that concept of a pulse check. Doing this org wide, how do you feel about the company? How do you feel about where we're headed as an org? And kind of being able to share these out. And it's a good introspective look. If the words end up being negative or they end up being daunting, it's something to identify and say, okay, how do we fix this? How do we get more positive outcomes from these pulse checks? So again, pulse checks are one of my favorite tools to use in building learning development programs from a bigger holistic perspective, but they're really great in the micro level too, getting feedback about how people are feeling in the moment. Awesome. So the poll is full, so I'll close this out. We can again share that at the end of the workshop, so you guys will be able to see that in the offsite. All right, so we're going to head over into best practices. Caitlin, did you want to kick us off into the final? This is the final segment of this series. We're going to talk about hopefully something you're looking to get out of here, some tangibles. What are some best practices you can be doing to help avoid those pitfalls?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Courtney. So when we look at best practices, the first kind of thing that we are going to identify is holistic programming. And so there are many moving parts, wellness, learning and development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, different conferences or trainings that your team might be having, and how we interact and engage with employees. We know that their well-being is intimately connected. All of these things are moving parts that are interconnected. And so at FitPros, we have our 5 pillars of wellness: physical, social, emotional, financial, and professional. And when I talk with business leaders, on the call, on our initial kind of intakes, I always like to approach creating different proposals and recommendations through a holistic lens. To use an example of this, let's say you have an employee who has who's struggling with burnout, right? Or they're feeling stressed about something, and you have a health talk on mental health and identifying what stressors they're having and how to kind of address them. And come to find out in that health talk, if I'm the employee, I recognize that I'm actually feeling really stressed because my partner was laid off, we're having some financial issues. I am maybe a salesperson, I want to work a lot harder, drive my commission up, whatever it might be, but I'm realizing that my financial wellness is off. I don't actually know, I'm struggling how to budget, I'm struggling how to invest my money. That stress takes a toll on my physical wellness. Now I'm working more hours. I'm snacking all the time because I don't have time to eat a proper meal. So you kind of see how these things trickle into another, and they're very interconnected. So when programming and when building out consistent things, you'll want to kind of approach it at a holistic level. Going back to the original goals that you set, the original why are we doing this? The other part of holistic programming is bringing in different members of the C-suite, different members of leadership, your learning and development team, your human resources, your inclusion and belonging group leaders, your diversity and inclusion leaders, your benefits, your wellness warriors. They should all be conversing about what you need and kind of working intersectionally to deliver different types of programs. Courtney, I know at Learnit, you guys have, like you had mentioned, time management, mindfulness. So you guys have a lot of different holistic opportunities as well. So do you want to talk about how you're seeing different people leaders kind of engage and plan different types of programs?
Yeah, I definitely think that this one is super key. For any sort of resonance for this to work. If you're offering anything, to her point of the 5 pillars that FitPros has, which I really, really love, from a learning and development standpoint too, if you're offering things that are tone deaf, it's going to go horribly. So understanding where your employees are at is step one across the board. Understanding how they're feeling, how they're engaged, what they're struggling with is so important. I've worked with organizations for a long time, and those who just say, great, here's the check boxes we love to check, let's offer these courses, we think they're great and they're universal, they're business skills, let's get them out there. If they land with a thud, you've lost the engagement of your employees, and it's so much harder to build back up than not having anything. So one of the ways that we recommend doing that is, again, those pulse checks, understanding what the performance reviews are saying, understanding a huge helpful look is exit interviews. Identifying what people are saying when they leave your organization and why is the number one factor we've seen in understanding how to build up better attrition. So what that means, I'll give a great example of recently. We had a client of ours offering a lot of training on how to be better virtually because their staff had moved to virtual like many others. And so we offered a lot of training, both technicals, how to use Teams, how to use Zoom, how to contribute when you're not in the same room, along with how to be accountable, how to have virtual meetings and have really good virtual meeting strategies, how to keep people engaged. But they were offering these courses over and over, and the feedback was, this isn't what we need. And I had a long, tough talk with the L&D leaders about why we're offering these classes. And we went through and combed through all the reviews of the content and some of the feedback they were getting from their staff. And we realized these people knew how to do this. They were overwhelmed. They needed better time management skills. They needed how to manage Zoom fatigue. That's a huge component. So we brought in content on Zoom fatigue, mindfulness, how to say no. People are having so much trouble saying no to projects because they feel guilty. Like, well, I'm home, I don't have to commute, I should start saying yes. And that has triggered a super increase of stress amongst the workforce. So understanding holistically what the problems are is the only way to have a program that's going to land well. So I think that that's a really good segue into this next point, Caitlin. I'll move over if you want to take it.
Yeah, is, leadership by example. And so this takes us back to I think it was the first trend that we saw, attunement of you into what your managers and employees are looking for. But then also people need to be given permission. So you could have the best, most robust wellness and learning and development program in the industry, but do your employees have the permission to join? Are they at optimal times? Yes, but then also, do they have the permission to join? Or is the deadline or the client always going to come before my own personal well-being? And so what we see here is there really needs to be a top-down approach in your leadership, your C-suite members. They need to be on the health talks. They need to ask employees about, how did their time management course go? What are their takeaways? How cool is it to see our CFO on the boot camp? Managers can be, talking in meetings, in your one-on-ones, and be like, hey, Courtney, are you going to today's meditation? I'll see you there. I can't wait. and giving them that permission in the meeting, taking it back after and doing a follow-up. What did you take away from that? And really having kind of the ability for them to share. In our wellness channels, I always encourage people for our clients to have wellness channels, or to have a place where employees can go to promote different things that they're doing, whether it's personal habit building or it's company wide. And I have one client who's their CEO is constantly putting in new recipes that he's trying. He recently transitioned to be a vegan, and he likes to kind of share different food substitutions. They're having a variety of different cooking demos, and he's on all of them, and he's really engaging, and he's putting in the chat. And when people see that, they're like, oh, if they're going, then absolutely I'm going to go. I feel like I have permission to go. It's company-wide initiative, and I know it's really hard. Everybody is busy at the end of the day. Everybody is busy. There's always going to be a reason why maybe you don't go. But for example, you all made time today to come to this webinar. You all made time and were really intentional in attending. And so offering that same permission to your employees to be able to do that. Courtney, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I warned you guys I would keep bringing this up, but leadership by example is so important. To your point, Caitlin, the permission concept is huge, right? Because you can have this huge, robust opportunities everywhere. You've got an intranet, you've got marketing, you've got awareness campaigns telling you as an employee, take advantage. But if your direct report, your direct boss is not showing any badges on a badging system, or they're not promoting that they went to this class, or they took this opportunity, or they went to this book club, if they're not doing that, do you feel comfortable taking a couple hours a week for yourself? It's so much harder. So if you aren't pushing as the leaders of your org, if you're not pushing your management level folks to engage in this, and you're just focusing on the ICs, you're stunting your growth. So I think that the higher you go, the better. I'm working with a company right now. They're focusing on a huge growth mindset initiative. They have a new CEO, and their number one goal is basically grow with the company, or we're going to manage you out. And that's coming from the C level, but they're building their strategy around that, and everyone underneath that C level is completely bought in. And I think that they're going to be set up for success because of that, because it's going to be a trickle down effect. And they're creating a holistic approach with leadership leading the charge. And then the last, which brings us into the last best practice that I know that Caitlin will agree and want to talk about, is getting help outside your org. So we said in the beginning or earlier that these L&D professionals, human resources, people officers that both Caitlin and I work with day in, day out, they're just exhausted. They're overwhelmed. They're working so much. Unless you suddenly get this huge headcount and you can hire 10 people to work on your team, you just need to ask for help, because the reality is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to do everything yourself. You simply need to find companies like FitPros, like Learnit, who can help take some of that workload off while still keeping it underneath the umbrella of your org. I assume, Caitlin, you wanted to add something there.
Yeah, absolutely. I have calls with my clients all the time, and the ones that I have weekly calls with, like a regular cadence, it doesn't matter the day of the week, their answer, I'm always like, hey, how you doing today? Oh my God, it's been such a busy day. This is another call that I have. They're always excited. They're always excited for the call because they get to talk about something a little different than what they're on a regular cadence of. But we want to help prevent you from being burnt out yourself. We want to help drive and implement solutions that you as people leaders can also take advantage of, because your well-being and your growth and development also matter. So kind of reaching out to people like Courtney and myself and the Learnit team and FitPros team to, put your vision into play. There's a lot of logistics and coordination and marketing and all these things that go on that, frankly, most of the time you probably don't have time for. And so if you can have a partner in that to help deliver kind of that white glove service and be able to support you, tracking utilization, metrics, ROI, all those good things that you want to be able to continue to drive the sustainability of your program, it's okay to ask for help. And that's exactly why Courtney and myself and our teams backing us are here.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here, and this is a perfect, asking for help transition into just kind of the final point here, which is just open Q&A. And we've got, gosh, I don't have my about 10 minutes left. So I'm sure there were some questions that trickled in that maybe we didn't get to answer. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because you don't need to see a Q&A to understand that's the point. But I assume, Carly, if you wanted to read any questions we missed, and for those of you that haven't had a chance to ask questions that maybe you do have, or points you're hoping to get out that we didn't get hit on, I'm sure Caitlin or I can take our best stab.
Yeah, thank you so much, Courtney and Caitlin, for all your insights and for sharing. We had quite a few really great questions come through the chat. I'll just prioritize a couple that we have time for, and then we'll also please feel free to keep contributing, everyone who's in the Zoom room. But I thought Angela had a good, fairly specific question about actually approaching like contractors or part-time employees. So how do you maybe support people that are working with your organization in some capacity, but maybe not full-time, and kind of, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I can kind of kick us off on that. That's a great question, and definitely one that we see a lot at FitPros, is that people who are working billable hours are working. I think this question kind of goes along, even like in a warehouse, and they can't take time off to join a live session. So there's a couple of things that we typically see is either supporting and giving the permission for them to do this, because ultimately the time that you're putting into it is work. It is work. It is my job to take care of myself so I can best be productive for my company, so I can be my best self. But it's not always going to work, and we recognize that. So one example or one kind of strategy is offering on-demand solutions. So at FitPros, all of our live sessions with our clients' permission can be recorded and then later shared out with employees, either on your intranet or in via email. I have a group right now that's hosting a global wellness week, but they have two very specific groups, warehouse, then also some stylists that can't participate live. So we have a newsletter campaign going out with a daily pulse check and a daily trivia. So just other fun ways to get them to be able to engage on their own time. And then inside of their own group, so at the warehouse on different locations, their PNC leaders are driving the initiative that we have set up for them. So just, it really comes down to being creative in how we can support them, and working with a partner to be able to kind of brainstorm and flesh some of those details out depending upon your demographics, needs, and goals. Courtney, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo the sentiment of creativity, because I know it's hard if there's a instructor-led class you're inviting them to. It's the gray area of, do we have to pay them to go, right? So if it's a productivity class and we want them to go, do we have to pay our contractors? So what I often see and recommend is things that are self-paced and optional, that are a little bit on the lower cost side, so you can mitigate that, and then making the effort, to her point, to give permission to engage by offering quarterly resources for these people that you do just go ahead and bite the bullet on the cost to pay for their time. Say, come join this productivity workshop, come join this particular engagement seminar that we have set up for you, knowing that this is going to be billable hours, but also making them feel a part of the team, because it's really a decision you have to make as an org. Do we want them to feel part of the group, even though they're contractors, or are we okay with having siloed engagement levels? So creativity on things they can do outside with still feeling welcomed and still part of the team are definitely key components there. Good question.
Awesome. And then we had a couple of people kind of collectively say that they're newer to their position. So they might be a newer people leader, or just new to the organization. And how do you kind of build trust, like from employees, of like that, that you have the expertise to build out a program? I think maybe even fighting some of that imposter syndrome or whatever you might be feeling being new in a role. And if you're building a program kind of as someone who's new, what are some tools to kind of do that, to even just build trust and kind of build credibility as a new leader and in building those programs?
Courtney, you want to kick us off on that one?
Sure.
It's a great question.
It is a good question. And my number one advice, especially when it comes to imposter syndrome, because most of us have it at some point in our lives and our careers, is just do it. Just start doing it. The more trepidation you show in terms of offering and creating programs, spaces, events, the more trepidation you show, the more they're going to read into does she or he know what they're doing, or what's the true buy-in here. If you come in hot, move fast, break things is my favorite sentiment. You're more likely to get engagement, assuming you start with easy things. So offering, meditation or yoga classes, or offering really, really common business skill workshops that are a high impact, short amount of contribution, short amount of time commitment from your staff is the quickest way to get engagement. Another thing is the carrot stick concept, right? So it's hard to decide whether you want to require people to attend things. It tends to be left with a little sour taste in their mouth. But the carrot is one of my favorite things. And I will say the number one thing I'm seeing to create the carrot concept of engagement is badging systems. People are just loving this concept of gamification of development. So creating a badging system is not that hard. Learnit does it for our clients all the time. And people, I mean, I don't know if anyone here has a Peloton or a Hydro or anything, when they just love hitting those milestones. It's a self accomplishment. So people see, oh, I get this because I did this. It instantly creates that need to succeed in human nature. So I think that jumping in, not waiting, picking something that's low hanging fruit, like is a current issue, and then gamifying, creating a fun opportunity for people to do it. Caitlin?
Yeah, I mean, Courtney, I think you hit the nail on the head on that one. Definitely, low hanging fruit, things that just commonly people, even if you don't know what people in your own organization want, what are other people in your industry doing? So, big in tech companies, they offer fitness classes. They offer a quarterly health talk, or, they offer a regular wellness week. So kind of just programming out some of those things, and then incentivizing, but to the point of, it's habit building rather than, okay, you get a gift or you get a gift card for attending this session. Maybe to kick it off, I see people start that way. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're going to raffle this off, or we're going to do this. But then long term, in that gamification of it is like, okay, quarter one or kicking it off, all right, everybody gets a gift card, winner at every session. Quarter two, now you have to attend 3 or 4 sessions, and then you'll be entered into a raffle. Maybe there's a point system attributed to it. So I like all of the points that you made, Courtney, and I think they're definitely transferable across L&D and wellness spaces.
And just one thing I wanted to add for some super specificity. If you're not sure where to start, in almost 13 years of doing this, I have never seen an Excel lunch and learn get negative feedback. It is the easiest, lowest hanging fruit you could possibly ever offer. People love Excel, or if they hate it, they attend it and become lovers of it. And there's never anything you can't learn when it comes to Excel. 30-minute tips and tricks on Excel every time is a winner if you want somewhere specifically to start.
Yeah, definitely. And or just from the wellness perspective, something that brings people together to just have a good time. And I think there's another question in here, Lars, maybe from you, about like wellness makes people feel good. What are ways to kind of leverage that? And so holding a cooking demo or an art therapy class or just a regular painting class, right? Just something or a virtual escape room, something that brings your employees together to just have fun, and just everybody's working remote, take this opportunity to take a break and just enjoy yourselves, and let's do it together.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Courtney and Caitlin, for your time today. We are just about to wrap up. So everyone, if you enjoyed the session, if you could give a little thumbs up reaction, or just share 1 or 2 words that helped, how you felt about today's session. We'd love your feedback. But I just want to thank the 2 of you for your time. And as promised, we do have some opportunities for you to kind of start building a program yourself or stay engaged with us. So if you'd like to dive deeper, Learnit, we have some 2-hour workshops coming up around employees succeeding remotely. We have a 2-hour workshop coming up on May 16th. And we also have a 5-week cohort program coming up on building resiliency. So if you're interested in even that kind of more building a regular cadence of development and learning for your team, that's a really great opportunity to kind of see what that could look like for your team as well. And then on the FitPro side, I can kind of build two hand in hand, but FitPros hosts regular health fairs, and it's also Asian American and Pacific Islander History Month. So FitPros is hosting a variety of different donation-based fitness classes in honor of that as well, and we'll share the dates out for that. And all of you that join offsite and that attend today will receive 20% off across the board on all of this programming. But Caitlin, I also want to give you an opportunity to speak a little bit about the workshops that are coming up with FitPros.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Carly. So for very quick context, health fairs, those are fun ways for people to get excited about their benefits. So it can happen on site in a post-COVID and or COVID safe way, and or in the virtual space. Really fun wellness weeks packed with wellness activities, and then also intentional time with your carriers so people can ask questions. In regards to AAPI History Month and Celebration Month next in May, we are hosting weekly a fitness class led by an Asian instructor. And then on the 4th and final week, we will also be having a roundtable webinar talking about racism in COVID times, specifically a discussion on anti-Asian violence, Asian American Pacific Islander mental health, and allyship. So if you'd like to learn more about that, my contact information, I believe, will be in the follow-up email that Carly will send out, and we would love to have you join us.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Yeah, we'll have all of that available via email as well, and we'll send you the dates and more specifics on that. And just the last place to stay engaged with us. And if you want to find out more about Learnit and FitPros events, we invite you to join our free online community. So that's where you can access today's recording. We also have live instructor help in offsite as well. And I'll go back there. And there's also exclusive discounts on workshops like the ones we kind of highlighted today as well. So we do invite you to go to offsitebylearnit.com. We'd love to have you in there, and we'd love to keep engaging with you. And just a couple of final events that we have here at Learnit coming up in the next 2 weeks to round out our month of employee well-being. And again, Caitlin will also share. I'll also be sharing FitPros events here as well. But next week we have a session on Outlook, how to get your email back in track to reduce stress and anxiety, and also another expert panel on preparing for the next normal. So, and of course, if you've been attending weekly, thank you for coming back. And we are distributing badges for our community events as well. So if you like what you're seeing, we do give out badges for those who are attending week over week. So in offsite. So with that, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. We're so glad you found us. We're so happy you're here, and we wish you the best in building out your programs.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy Friday. Bye.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Thank you so much, Caitlin.